Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to this explainer journey with Witnesses to Happiness. I'm just so incredibly glad you found your way here today. We're going to be exploring something that so many of us feel, but honestly, we rarely speak about it openly. I'm talking about that deep, visceral fear of the tarot. Whether you're seeking a little guidance in love, maybe your career, or just your own personal growth, you've probably felt that sudden, heavy drop in your stomach when a dark card is pulled. Today, as your guide, I want to take you gently by the hand. Together, we're going to walk right into the profound wisdom of these images. We'll uncover exactly why they frighten us, and more importantly, learn how to transform all that fear into beautiful, illuminating insight. It really is a powerful question, isn't it? I mean, if we strip away the mystique for just a moment, we're literally looking at 78 pieces of printed paper. Historically, back in the 15th century, these were conceived as nothing more than playing cards. And yet, here in our modern world, they hold this incredible power over our emotions, our daily decisions, and our peace of mind. We feel a very real, very physical reaction to them. But I want to remind you of a fundamental truth before we go any deeper. These cards are just ink and cardboard. They do not dictate your fate. They merely reflect your beautiful inner world. The cards speak. Are you listening? Section 1. Unmasking the Dark Cards, the Gallery of Shadows. Let's gently step into the darkness together. It's time we unmask the specific archetypes that tend to trigger our deepest moments of panic. You absolutely know the ones I mean. The cards we pray we don't see. And there is no card more universally feared than death. When we see that skeleton, our primal brain immediately perceives a literal, physical threat. But let's look at where this imagery comes from. It stems from the medieval danse macabre, or dance of death, during a time when plagues and wars were just a part of everyday life. Back then, the skeleton was actually a comforting symbol of divine equality, meaning death comes for the emperor and the peasant alike. In the famous 1909 Rider-Waite-Smith deck, death is shown as an apocalyptic knight. But if you look closely at the background, do you see it? Right there, between the two towers, a golden sun is rising. This card is not about an end. It's a profound spiritual truth. It's the clearing away of the old, the harvesting of what simply no longer serves you, all to make beautiful space for a brand new dawn in your life. And then, of course, there is the devil. This card instantly triggers our cultural fears of evil, possession, and moral decay. Its imagery borrows heavily from the Greek god Pan and the occult figure Baphomet. But I really want you to focus on the chains around the two figures at the demon's feet. Those chains are completely loose. Their hands are free. They could literally just lift them over their heads and walk away at any given moment. The illusion here is that some external dark force is trapping you. But the reality is that this card points to our self-imposed bondages. It's our addictions, our codependency, our materialism. It represents those suppressed shadow parts of ourselves, those primal urges we absolutely refuse to tame. So once again, I ask you, the cards speak. Are you listening? Now, while death represents a slow, natural transition, the Tower is the absolute shock of a lightning bolt. This is the card of sudden, undeniable change. It represents the biblical Tower of Babel, the destruction of our hubris and that incredibly fragile ego we build up to protect ourselves. We fear this card the most because it violently shatters our deeply held illusions of security. But I want you to consider this for a moment. If the tower you built was actually a prison, maybe a job that made you completely miserable, or a belief system that kept you feeling small, then that lightning bolt, it isn't a punishment. It is a profound, absolutely necessary liberation. We also find some very deep shadows in this suit of swords, which rules the element of air and the realm of the human mind. Take the Ten of Swords, it's pure theatrical overkill. A figure pinned down by 10 massive blades. It looks so brutal, but it actually just means you've hit rock bottom. The cycle of pain is finally over, and it simply can't get any worse from here. Then there's the Three of Swords, showing a heart directly pierced by blades, an undeniable, abstract symbol of heartbreak and immediate sorrow. But look at the Nine of Swords. This is the card of nightmares and pure anxiety. Notice how the figure is sitting up in bed in absolute anguish, and yet the swords hovering in the dark air above never actually touch them. The pain is entirely 100% in the mind. Section 2. Mirrors of the Mind, the Architecture of Fear. So, why do we react to these images with such overwhelming intensity? To truly understand this, we have to transition from the mystical imagery of the cards and step into the profound architecture of our own minds. We need to explore the psychological mechanisms behind our fear. You see, the tarot functions very much like the Rorschach inkblot test used in clinical psychology. It acts as a projective mirror.
The images on the cards are deeply symbolic, and they're purposefully ambiguous. So when you look at the tower and immediately panic about your relationship ending, the card itself isn't actually saying your partner is leaving. You are projecting your own suppressed fear of abandonment onto the imagery. The anxiety is not about the card, it's about the suppressed psychological content, what Carl Jung called our archetypal shadows, reflecting right back at us.
We are all beautifully, wonderfully human, which simply means we crave safety and control. In psychology, there's a concept known as the intolerance of uncertainty. When we come to the cards, we're usually in a vulnerable place, right? We're seeking reassurance about our future. So when the tarot gives us a chaotic or ambiguous card, it directly clashes with our deep human need for control. Because we just cannot tolerate not knowing, our minds immediately catastrophize. We assume the absolute worst possible outcome, just trying to mentally prepare ourselves for the blow. Furthermore, there is something called the terror management theory. This theory suggests that we build these massive cultural walls, our careers, our social status, our daily routines, to hide from the fragility of our ego and our ultimate mortality. When a card like death or judgment appears, it pierces right through protective veil. It forces us to face exactly how fragile our control over life really is. It isn't the card we fear. It's the sheer vulnerability of our own existence being brought out into the light. Section 3. The illusions of the material world, culture, and real risks. Beyond our internal psychology, there are massive outside forces that have literally taught us to fear the tarot. The modern world has taken these incredibly sacred tools and twisted them to entertain and sometimes even to exploit. Over the last 50 years, pop culture has heavily conditioned us. Think back to the 1973 James Bond film, Live and Let Die, where the death card was portrayed as a literal, physical death sentence. Or, more recently, the 2021 movie Nightmare Alley took the Hanged Man, which is actually a beautiful card about spiritual surrender and gaining a new perspective, and turned it into this fatalistic symbol of inescapable doom. And of course, the 2024 horror film simply titled Tarot cements the cards purely as a vehicle for cinematic terror. Hollywood has actively trained us to read deeply allegorical spiritual symbols literally. They've erased the nuance and taught us all to just expect the worst. This cultural conditioning leads to a very real, very physical danger called the nocebo effect. This is essentially the opposite of a placebo. If you pull a difficult card and deeply, truly believe it curses you, your brain is going to release stress hormones like cortisol. You might start experiencing sleep disturbances or even a weakened immune system. You might drive more tensely and accidentally cause the very accident you were so terrified of. It becomes a completely self-fulfilling prophecy born entirely from a misplaced belief. Because this fear is so incredibly potent, you must always reclaim your power. There are, sadly, unethical practitioners out there who manipulate these psychological vulnerabilities. They'll tell you that pulling the devil card means you have a curse on you, and then they'll offer to remove it for a very steep price. Please hear me on this. That is never the way of true spiritual guidance. In fact, the legal system in Germany takes this so seriously that under Section 263 of their criminal code, exploiting someone's fear of a curse for financial gain is actually prosecuted as criminal fraud. Never, ever surrender your sovereign power to fear. Section 4. The return to light, embracing your shadow. So how do we find our way back? How do we step out of this fear once and for all? I want to offer you some really beautiful, practical tools derived straight from depth psychology to help you use these daunting moments for profound personal growth. Carl Jung taught us that we do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This is what we call shadow work. The tarot card that scares you the most is actually an absolute gift. It's pointing exactly to the part of your soul that is crying out to be healed. If the tower terrifies you, ask yourself, where in your life are you clinging to false security? If you can just sit with that question, you transform the fear into an incredible source of hidden strength. Here is a lovely, practical exercise inspired by systemic therapy that you can try. Take the card that frightens you and place it down on the table. By putting it physically outside of yourself, you externalize the problem. It's no longer trapped inside your mind. Acknowledge the feeling it brings up, purely without judgment. Just let it be. Then, consciously choose a solution card from the deck, perhaps the star, which is a gorgeous symbol of hope and healing, and place it right next to the feared card. This simple physical act completely shifts the energy. It restores your sense of self-efficacy. You are visually mapping your inner turmoil and actively authoring its resolution. Through this beautiful practice, we cultivate what the poet John Keats called negative capability. This is the profound resilience to sit peacefully with uncertainty, with mystery, and with doubt, without desperately grasping for immediate answers.
Reading challenging cards is not a punishment from the universe. Think of it as a simulator. It builds your emotional resilience, effectively training your spirit to sit calmly in the face of life's inevitable unknowns. Ultimately, I want you to hold on to this truth. Just as a mirror is not to blame when we look tired, the card is not to blame for the fear. It only shows it. The tarot is simply reflecting your beautiful, complex humanity right back to you. Having the courage to look deeply into that mirror is what transforms a momentary flicker of terror into a lifetime of profound spiritual insight. And so, my dear friends, our journey together through the shadows comes to a close. You've seen exactly how the imagery works, how our minds project, and how the culture distorts our understanding. You hold the power now. So now that you see the truth hidden in the shadows, what will you learn about yourself when you finally have the courage to look? May your ongoing journey of self-discovery be filled with light, immense healing, and profound wisdom. Until next time.